Hello everyone, this is my reaction to last week's Star Citizen Live Q&A FPS gameplay. As always, this is not a summary, I only talk about things I find important.
You keep saying you know the med gun is wildly OP and then never doing anything to fix it. What's the plan for making medics actually relevant in the game long term, as it's a profession slated for 1.0 but is currently entirely useless?
So, we're aware that the med gun is very strong at the moment. We've commented on it before, and obviously with crafting upcoming, there's going to be lots of balance changes, there's going to be lots of weapon adjustments and things like that, and we're looking to address it then. But more importantly, on the road to 1.0, the medic profession, all of that is slated in to be locked in, get lots of improvements on, lots of new features with, and things like that. So, medics right now, sure, but medics on the road to 1.0 will get a lot more breadth and depth with the things that they can do.
He answered the question without saying anything. Medic profession gets lots of features and improvements on the road to 1.0. Yeah, but which ones? In Star Citizen, medics for the most part are not useful. Which is sad because there are whole orgs built around the idea of being medics.
Could you address the lack of level design that facilitates FPS PvP? To explain, even the contested zones separate people. Blue doors, timer, separate people out, making it hard to run into people. All the other places are worse. A lot of places are very linear and choke pointy in their level design, making them not play well for PvE, SC sandbox scenarios. What do you have to say?
So a lot of our older locations were built with just a lot less level design resource essentially. But what we're trying to do now is that obviously this game is very heavy on PvE. There's always going to be PvP, that's never going to stop. And we've started building locations basically intended for PvE, and those locations are always going to be more linear. They're always going to be more set up for that, and when instancing comes online, that's not going to be a problem for everyone else either. You're going to go to a location and you know it's only going to be you, so you're going to enjoy your PvE gameplay. When it comes to PvPVE or PvP locations, with the bigger level design team now, we can actually focus on making sure that there are multiple entrances. The sightlines are actually cared for and ensured that it makes sense for multiple teams coming in from different angles, and that we just make sure that cover placement and all of that sort of stuff is up to scratch, basically.
The LD team's a lot bigger now as well,
yes,
compared to where it was like 2 years ago.
We've gained 6 people in the last year.
Another not exactly fantastic answer. All the locations built with a lot less level design resources. I can see this, but you don't need a lot of level design resources to understand that you don't want to have choke points on maps that are PvE and PvP. For example, Siege of Orison, where CIG said PvP is permitted, which led to people just firing missiles in incoming shuttle as soon as the doors opened. You don't need 50 people on your team, you don't need to be a genius to understand that this is very bad level design.
Any progress on gadgets like trip sensors, scanners, remote detonated charges, and so on?
So I've got an answer, and it has the word Squadron 42 in, so I'm going to read it off the page. Currently, we have the deployable shield, breaching charge, and some other bits in Squadron 42, and do plan on shipping that in the PU in the future. We also have an area denial grenade coming this year as well. We plan to add more gadgets in the future, and we do like doing some surprise community wants like the binoculars, which are much asked for.
Reminder, these are not 3 people who are just starting to develop a game. This is a game project in year 14 with more than $1 billion in funding. We have plans in the future. We have plans to put it into the game in the future.
Are there plans to add spatialization for sound in FPS? I think sound plays a major role in combat, but currently we can't locate our enemies or tell if they're wearing heavy or light armor.
Yeah, I've talked to the audio team, and they're really keen on enjoying this armory factor, reworking what we've got so far, so that, yeah, if you're wearing a heavy suit, you actually sound extremely heavy. But like beyond that, they really want to have the wearer feel that they're in a heavy, suit. So if you're wearing that massive radiation suit, you'll feel isolated, like everything will be muffled around you as well. And I've generated this big list of audio I want to hear specifically on, like the stealth suit that we're going to be having. Like that wants to be the quietest sounding, because no matter what like emissions it gives out and all that stuff under the hood, if you can hear your feet squeaking against the floor as you run, sneak up behind someone, that's really off-putting. So yeah, like it's really important to nail all that.
It's also worth pointing out that footsteps have gone through a big iteration in Squadron as well, in terms of like when you sprint in SC right now, it's, you get essentially you have the heel down and the foot forward making a noise, but now it's just one foot plan. It's also reading the context of the environment as well. So if you're on like railings, it will make railing noises and things like that. So we've gone from like a generic footstep noise to an environmental context noise.
Chris is all about cool cinematic, but Chris knows that sound is very important too. However, if I look at Star Citizen Year 14, the sound design overall is really, really lacking. In other games, we can stand still, we can listen, and we can get good information where the other player is approaching from. But good thing is, CRG has plans.
Question 1. How will the upcoming armor rework make it so armor choice is more diverse? Question 2. What benefits are planned for players who wear light and medium armor in PvP and high-end PvE environments versus heavy armor? Currently, the movement bonus obviously doesn't typically offset the damage reduction of heavy armor. And question 3, with the addition of crafting armor coming, what's the progress on armor functionality? Armor roles like tank, recon, heavy scanning, stuff like that.
Right, so our main aims with the armory factor are to give players reason to wear flight suits, light, medium and heavy armors, give players reasons to wear the combat versus utility armors, because that's been a big distinction now, the two of those. To give players a reason to change armors based on their intent, and that's for specializations we were talking about in SitCon 2 years ago. So I'll go into some of those later. And then give individual armor pieces a purpose, so that arms aren't just useless cosmetics and stuff. Each piece of the armor has stats with it that you don't get with the others. So for me, and I think for you as well, the most important things is nailing those weight classes.
Yeah,
the feel of those weight classes.
It's very much so. Last time I heard it's about the legs, and you get you get mass reduction, right? So if you have heavy legs on, then your overall mass gets reduced because it's easier to walk and things like that. So it's you don't just become instantly a tank because you've got the thing on. It's cool, I've got these legs. I don't want to be weighed down too much. I want to be able to move faster, still my heavy, but that'll have other offsets, obviously.
Yeah, almost like a exo suit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's just the support that it gives. Right now we have this funny situation where if you were wearing entirely heavy armor, you had a full backpack on, all the attachments, and then you took your leg armor off and you just had naked legs. I mean, in real life you'd crumple under that weight. But in the game now, you are faster because you weigh less.
Yeah.
I really don't want to sound like a grumpy old man. But once again, there will be a refactor, this time an armor refactor. Reworks of reworks of reworks of reworks of reworks. And once again, CRG is not exactly very concrete. It looks like different armor pieces will get a bonus. Something I'm not opposed to, can be very interesting. For example, you can have arms that reduce recoil, or you can have leg armor that make you carry more. But they were not exactly very concrete in the statements.
There's damage mitigation. We're going to up the damage mitigation on mediums and heavies to give you a higher TTK.
Beyond what they are right now.
Beyond where they are now, yeah.
CRG just introduced threshold damage for ships. Why not have threshold damage for player armor? Something I never understood in Star Citizen, even the weakest handgun can still hurt players wearing the heaviest armor. In real life, we have armor levels, for example, level 2A provides protection against low velocity 9mm. Level 4 protects even against armor-piercing rifle rounds. Nothing of this is in Star Citizen in year 14.
Ship handling as well will be impacted by wearing medium or heavy armors. So that means that your inputs are slower. So if you make a hard turn, it will take it slower if you've got medium and heavy armor on.
Did I understand this correctly? If you are wearing medium or heavy armor, your ship will turn slower? Are you serious, CRG? I can get that if you are wearing heavy armor, your arms might be more restricted, But still, you should be able to give good inputs in your ship. There's not much arm movement needed for this. This looks like a very bad decision, forcing players to use light armor when they are flying a ship. If you don't want players to wear medium or heavy armor when they are flying a ship, there are better ways to do this. For example, restrict the space you have in a seat. But no, instead, your ship will turn slower if you are wearing medium or heavy armor.
Reducing the amount of times you're going to see somebody in a hospital gown carrying around a railgun.
Exactly.
So if you want to be able to keep a railgun up and on your shoulder and use it, you're going to need to actually increase the mass of your armor in order to have that
Benefit.
the support system to you, so make it possible for you to carry it.
Jared, what you're saying makes no sense. It would make sense if we had powered armor, some kind of exoskeleton, which we don't have in Star Citizen in year 14. Actually, you would be better off not wearing any extra armor when you want to carry a railgun, because armor just adds more weight. Maybe we are getting powered armor in the future, but it's not today.
This question is simply, how is the Crossbow coming along?
Okay, so this was the first year that I got to basically plan out all the weapons, and the first one on the list, obviously, that always gets mentioned is the Crossbow. So I can confirm that the Crossbow is coming this year.
I made a video about this in 2024.
Where the hell is my Crossbow?
Do you know what? Chris brought the Crossbow up recently. He was like, "Are we going to finish it?" And I'm like, "Well, it's kind of there. There was one thing stopping us with the way the bolts interacted with stuff that we couldn't do at the time."
The fabled Crossbow is an asset that we in the weapon concept team have been trying to get pushed out for a long time now.
At the point of creation this Crossbow, it was decided that the bolts needs to stuck when you fire them and not disappear like any other bullet, and this prevented the release of the Crossbow because we cannot consistently make the bolts stuck.
CRG claims the hold-up is bolts should not disappear. Never been done before. Here we have the game 7 Days to Die.
Can we have the MedPed automatically switch back to the gun after being injected, like it already happens in Arena Commander?
Yes, that's one of the options that we do want to add.
Okay.
Yeah.
So next week or?
Sooner than you hope, but further than you'd expect.
Any progress on FPS item wear and tear, like armor tear or weapon misfire?
Yes, so in terms of weapon malfunctions and weapon overheating, every single weapon has that in Squadron at the minute. So every single weapon jams, every single weapon, well, the weapons that can overheat do overheat. That is fully implemented in Squadron 42, and it will be coming to the PU in the future.
I really dislike wear and tear and weapon jamming in games because it never makes any sense. Usually you're only firing a few shots, and weapons should not jam when you do this, so most game designers are totally overdoing it. Weapons will jam even after you've fired like 20 shots. Not very realistic, and no one needs this in a game.
Is it possible to climb more stuff?
Yes, essentially. A lot of older content still probably won't be able to climb as much, but as we have a much larger level design team now, we are able to make more stuff climbable and also design stuff that's more traversal oriented.
Another thing I really dislike that some games do, and Star Citizen does this too, you can only climb when a dev flagged the spot as climbable. If a Star Citizen dev flagged the spot as climbable, you can climb up even 2 meters wearing full heavy armor and a backpack. However, if a Star Citizen dev did not flag a spot as climbable, even the 1.25 meter box is an insurmountable obstacle. This is not very immersive and it's not good for gameplay. For example, if you didn't park your ship perfectly, it can happen that a ramp is like 1.25 meters in the air, which wouldn't be any issue in real life, but in a game, you cannot get back into your ship. I never understood why CRG doesn't just look at the height of an object and decide if a player can climb over, while CRG devs have to flag spots as climbable.
What is the status on swimming?
Fully implemented in Squadron 42, will be coming to the PU in the future.
How different is FPS in Squadron 42 compared to Star Citizen, and what lessons from polishing there can we expect to come to Star Citizen?
Movement accelerations, melee improvements, that's a big one. So hey, you're not randomly going to go in front of you anymore. It's, there's nicer animations there. How it follows up feels better. Weapons having consistent slots. So for people who have to constantly switch around and do those things, I know it's very annoying, but that is now like, cool, I have weapon 1, I have weapon 2. They have consistent slots. Yeah, the action matrix. Oh yeah, for example, sprinting and med penning now, if you press sprint, you press your med pen button, your med pen, then you automatically go back to sprinting. So sprint toggle, beautiful. And yeah, my favorite one, weapon raise 2.0. So as you know right now, if you go up to a surface, you do this. We now have a procedural back like that, and it's very, very nice. We've also moved the pushback point to the optic. So for people who want to aim over railings and shoot over railings, you can now do that. Yeah, I mean, the FPS experience overall is far more smoother to play. FPS AI has basically been overhauled. Francesco Riccucci and Chris Roberts have been themselves very involved in that process as well. Chris has been very keen on making the AI experience in Squadron, so they've been working very closely together. Entirely new audio setup for guns. The guns sound absolutely amazing. The audio work on them has been incredible, not just the sound that you hear, but also the mixing. So that's basically how loud shots are, how they feel. So if someone's down the other hallway and they're firing, it sounds like they're down the hallway, and it is honestly gorgeous. And yeah, all of that is planned to come to the persistent universe.
Lots of improvements for FPS combat in Squadron 42 coming to the PU as planned. I'm looking very forward to this.
Why is the boom tube dealing so much damage?
Okay, this is, Rich told me to be very careful with this one as well, but I actually do have this one written down. Because Rich said you can't say, oh, it's not. So why is the boom tube dealing so much damage? Well, basically, as we said, we're going to be looking at balance, we're going to be looking at damage and those things, especially with crafting coming more online, especially with armor coming more online, like you said, with the heavy armor, with the max resistance and things like that. But the hardest thing with the boom tube, obviously, is the diversity of vehicles in the game. The diversity of the health between a light fighter, a ground vehicle, a heavy vehicle is, it's a complicated game, especially when you mix all those things together. But most importantly, this is something we're looking at. I've already come up with a couple of ideas of what we want to do, like increasing the arming distance. Like there was a clip on Reddit recently where someone just shot it in a ship and the ship blew up because they were raiding on. But yeah, so it's something we're looking at and keeping an eye on. If you take a boom tube into an encounter, you're sacrificing a weapon slot, you're sacrificing the ability to, fight other people, fight other NPCs. So it's a heavy cost versus the reward you get for how slow the projectile is and how much spread it has.
This explanation doesn't make any sense. Boom tube and railgun are doing way too much damage. I get it. CRG wants to give players something they can use in FPS combat to fight back against spaceships and tanks, but this is way out of balance. Seriously, if we could, we would just weld railguns and boom tubes to our spaceships.
Is med penning yourself in a down state still a planned feature?
Yes, that is still a planned feature, and the plan is to move it to the Adrena pen. So basically, if you get downed, you'll enter a down but not out state. That's also fully implemented in Squadron. But Squadron has expensive self-revive pens. It's obviously MMO, single-player game. But yes, so that is still planned. And let me just check my notes, see if there's any other caveats there. But
You'll be an Adrena pen for rezzing other players as well.
Yes, that's the other bit. You'll need the Adrena pen for other people. Yeah, so you can crawl around on the floor, traditional down but not out.
Crawling around while in a downed but not out state is fine by me. Many games have this, but self-reviving using a med pen seems really, really off. Half an hour earlier, they talked about making medics more important in Star Citizen, but with self-revive, medics are even less important. I get it. Asking for help and waiting like 20-30 minutes until a medic shows up is not exactly fantastic gameplay, but self-revive in an MMO, I don't think that's a good idea.
I can hear you.
Hi, we are live on Star Citizen Live right now.
Sweet. What's going on?
We just did a show about FPS combat and gameplay, and the overwhelming topic in chat was about desync.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I volunteered. Remember those big long posts you used to do on Spectrum about a really important topic?
Yeah.
I volunteered you to make one of those.
Okay.
And then
on desync specifically.
Yeah, on desync specifically, and what's causing it, and what our efforts to fix it. And
It's all good.
I realized I didn't want you to hear about it on Reddit first.
Okay, cool. So just a deep dive.
Just a deep dive on desync and why it's happening.
All things desync and networking.
Yeah, I think it's important.
How hard can
Sounds
it be?
good. We'll do it.
Sure.
Sorry, can you hear that? Can you say that again?
We're good. I'll do it.
All right. Thank you, Benoit.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Have a good one.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Very nice that CRG is finally talking about do things. Star Citizen always had some do things, but it has gotten way worse when CRG increased the player cap from 24 to 50 and then to 100. In 3.18 we got PES, persistent entity streaming, and do things have gotten worse. Then we got 4.0 with static server meshing and a player cap of over 700 players, and do things have gotten way worse. In 4.5 we got engineering, and now CRG servers that were already way overworked have to keep track, have to store and have to distribute even more data, and do things have gotten really, really bad. We even have do things of players and NPCs at walking speeds. Looks like Benoit will write a Spectrum article about this. This will not be a Star Citizen Live. I'm looking very forward to this. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Bye. Auf Wiedersehen. Okay, let's check it out. Call elevator. I don't think he will get crushed, but when we are lucky, the trolley will be on the elevator. And okay, my 890 is destroyed. Hey, you're still here. You might want to join me on Twitter or on Blue Sky.